This week on Purely OCD, we will be continuing our conversation from last time on relationship OCD. So, last time we talked about obsessions, and then this episode, we are going to be talking more about relationship OCD in terms of compulsions.
Indeed.
So, where to begin?
There are so many good places to choose from, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we start with mental compulsions. I think that this is one of those subtypes where, it tends to fall into that pure O category. So we tend to see, and for anyone who's new, pure O, pure obsessional OCD, kind of a misnomer because no OCD only really has the obsessional part. There are compulsions, they're just invisible. So,
Right.
um,
Meaning mentally.
they're happening in your head, which is tricky. So, in terms of this subtype, we tend to sort of classify it. Not that you can't do more overt compulsions that you can see. However, this is one of those where we tend to see a lot of mental compulsions. So maybe we start there, and
Great
then
idea.
we can sort of branch off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So, I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind, a lot does, but the first thing would be, if the obsession is, do I really love this partner as much as I loved the last person I was with, right? They might bring up memories or feelings in their mind to try to compare. Does this match? Does this feel the same? It should feel more.
Yep. Which is great because obviously our memories are not perfect. And so if we go back in
Right.
time and try to bring those up, I don't know, the chances are, most often from my vantage point, that the past gets like a rosier hue to it than
Yeah.
does the
It's all
present.
messed up because forget OCD for a minute, but I think that's just how generally how brains work is like the present can be much more doom and gloom. And then the past, you're like, oh, that was actually not so bad.
That was so great. Why? See, I should have, and it's all a lie.
Yeah.
I think. What's really interesting to me about this, not to go off on a tangent, but with the comparison piece, specifically with relationship OCD, I I tend to see a lot of people idealizing relationships in which there's unrequited love.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in a relationship with somebody who's emotionally unavailable, for example, that there is this tendency to look back and be like, oh, but I loved them, right? Him, her, them, whoever.
Mm-hmm.
And that was so magical and amazing. And I like my feelings for them never died. Now, if you start to root around in there, chances are that that person really wasn't able to meet you where you needed to be. And so there was this constant pining, which kept that emotion of wanting and excitement happening.
Very good observation. Yeah, totally. I could see that.
Yeah. I've seen it come up a lot with a number of different people. And it's very interesting to me. And that as we get into a real relationship, not that that's a real relationship, but like your face. But as we find ourselves in a relationship that is mutual and does last, that it's prone to things like boredom and like frustration and annoyance and all of these things that if you're constantly just hoping that this person doesn't drop you, that you're not ever really getting to experience.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Um,
So mental review was
mental
where you,
review.
sorry,
No,
like
no, that's
review.
okay. No, this is good. This is helpful, I'm sure, to a lot of people, actually.
Mm.
Um, and then, so mental review, this could also be like mentally visualizing yourself with somebody else. Like, does
Mhm.
this feel even like, is it bad? Does it feel bad? Because if it feels bad, that's good. That means I am with the
Yes.
right person.
Right.
Or, like there's sometimes like the moral stuff can come up, moral OCD, scrupulosity stuff.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, I don't know. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah,
Because
no, I
I think
do
that's
actually.
probably a big topic.
Yeah, but I think that it's interesting because it sort of dovetails from what you were just saying about comparing people in your mind's eye. Sometimes I see, and maybe this is why you thought of it. Sometimes I see people. Oh, I actually wasn't going to go that route. I was going to say
Oh,
that sometimes people have crushes on other people when
oh.
they're in relationships with
Mhm.
like a significant other to whom they're committed, and maybe they're not, like, unless they're in like a polyamorous relationship, and that's kosher. But um, there is sometimes this fear of, oh, well, I would be happier with this person. And so it's not even just comparing to the past or comparing to somebody in your mind. It could be somebody who is sitting next to your partner,
Mhm.
and going, oh, well, how do I feel? He just said that, or,
Oh,
he just
yeah.
said that. And did I like that better, or did I like that better? And why am I feeling more attracted to him?
Whew.
You know,
Yeah,
all of that. Yeah.
that's fun.
It's a great time, probably had by
Oh,
all.
it's freaking exhausting.
So there can be comparing to past, comparing to like other sort of like the idea of the person. There can be comparing to your direct experience of another person in the present moment. But in terms of moral group, I think I hear a lot of, well, is it okay that I have thoughts about other people? Is it okay that I find somebody else to be attractive or interesting, or maybe even more interesting than my partner?
Yeah.
Is that kind
Yep.
of what you had in mind?
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it with that
Yeah.
stuff.
Like somehow you're supposed to not have any sort of enjoyment or anything outside of the context of your primary, if again, if you're in a monogamous relationship, that's like your primary relationship. In
Yeah,
which case you and I have been having an affair for years. So
many years. Sorry, guys.
sorry to our
Like,
husbands because we do enjoy each other's company. So,
it's true.
oh well.
Um, and also, shoot, related to that was what were we just saying?
Moral scrupulosity.
Oh, is that there can be confessing that goes on. I know
Mm,
it's unrelated to mental compulsions, but it can be, "Hey, I just got a message from this person," and then reading it and saying, "What do you think?" Like,
yeah.
trying to see, like, do they are they mad at me? Am I cheating on you? What level of degree am I at right now?
Totally.
So
And to your point, you may not even actually say the words, "What do you think about this?" You may
no.
just sort of like launch it and let it
Yeah,
linger and see what happens.
just zoop, waiting.
Yeah. Like, "Oh, this person sent this to me. Hmm."
Yeah, just
And
waiting.
yeah, just thought I'd share because sharing is caring.
Yeah, yep.
Um, no, but I think that a lot of reassurance seeking happens, and it's not just with your partner, too. Like it could be that sort of compulsive confessing where you're saying, "Hey, this happened, and what do you think?" Or even just waiting for the answer. But then there's, well, do you think that this is the right relationship, or does it mean something about my relationship that I'm not always attracted to my partner, to friends and family members, uh,
Mm.
totally independent, right?
Right. So that's where this type of OCD, every version of OCD has different little caveats to treatment. And this is definitely one of those where it's like this is a topic that's not a taboo topic per se. That
Yep.
you're not going to be talking about typically. I mean, I hope that more people do this, but talking about like stabbing their child, right?
Right. It
If
doesn't
you
get as
have
much
OCD.
airtime. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not gonna at a family gathering, typically, that's not what's gonna be talked about.
No, no, that's true. Like, I
Yeah,
wanna throttle them maybe, but
right,
not I wanna, yeah, stab them in the
right.
heart.
So it'd be more like, "Here's my husband," or, "Here's my partner," and, like, "What do you think about them?" But in so not like not that direct. It's more of
Yeah.
like, "Hey, they do this," and then waiting to hear what the other person says. Like, is that normal? Is what we're looking for, right? We
Yes.
want certainty. We wanna figure out, is this the right person for me?
Right. Right. And you're right. I think it's so commonplace in our culture to be in this continual conversation about, is this person right, that it's easier for people to get stuck in sort
Mhm.
of co-compulsing with other people, or asking for reassurance a lot of the time. um
Yeah.
yeah, so it can be an issue. And yeah, also thinking that other people somehow have information that you don't, which I always find to be really
I do
fascinating.
too. I do too. I think about it regularly. It's like, but actually you're the expert, but
Right.
okay,
You're the one who knows, and I think that this is what
more
is
than anybody.
scary,
Yeah.
but scary to people, right? Is like, oh, well, it's all on me, and maybe there's something that I'm seeing, and if I confess this to somebody else and they say it's fine, then I'm safe.
Yeah.
But yeah, but they don't nobody else has the full picture.
Mm-mm.
And so it's really interesting that it's like, ooh, can I trust myself, or is this okay, or can I trust this person, when it's like
Right. We don't know.
we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know.
There's also a lot of, like, the arousal, so groinal checking,
Yep.
right? Like,
Absolute.
am I sexually aroused? Um, which, if you've been sex is very complicated and all the
No.
varieties of sex.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Go ahead.
Turns out there's, like, emotions involved and
Ugh,
traumas involved,
yeah.
like, there's so many complications that can go awry.
True.
Anxiety is like all these things can impact our sexual interactions with our partner, and
Yeah.
believe me when I say that this one can really throw everybody for a loop.
Yeah. Yeah, and being in the questioning while having sex, right?
Yep.
Oof. That's a rough one for people, because they're like, "Well, I'm not enjoying myself." It's like, well, ruminating about whether or not you're enjoying yourself isn't really a very enjoyable activity. So,
Right. Or just feeling even if you drop rumination, like, just the feeling of anxiety can be,
yeah.
and then you go, "Oh, well, that must mean that I don't this isn't the right one," which then can say, like, "Well, maybe I've never felt that connected with this sexual orientation. So maybe
And then it
really I'm interested in females, not males."
right, right. So lots of overlap between sexual orientation and relationship OCD for sure.
Yeah, trying to find an answer.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. Just the experience of anxiety. It's like, well, I'm not having fun. And I think part of recovery, it's accepting that, okay, right now I'm having this varied experience. I
Very
really
experience. I like that.
I would really prefer it if it was no anxiety and all pleasure, but that's not where we're at.
Mm-mm.
So, and maybe my perception is that it's zero pleasure and all anxiety, or mostly anxiety. And at some point we have to be like, okay, well, I'm going to accept it may always be like this. I don't know. I like, maybe it means something. Maybe I'm not attracted. I'm just going to keep coming back to the present, because otherwise you never really get to experience the experience. You're just
Yeah,
constantly evaluating it, and that's going to promote your anxiety. It's not going to clarify anything.
right. But also, just to go back on this narrative that we have in our culture about what love looks like and how partnership should be like, I think that sex often comes into play of like, it's not just the emotional piece, but like every sexual experience should be like this spiritual awakening. And I got news for everybody. It ain't. It ain't gonna be that.
No, preach.
So,
Legit.
and that
Well,
doesn't mean whether or not that may or may not mean, I guess, that that's
yeah,
related
that
to
could
the
be the
person.
right.
It's like
Yeah,
that's usually how that goes.
right. And all relationships are a trade-off, right? So again, back to this concept of being in this sort of pursuer pursued relationship, like that is more generally more sexually enticing, being in
That
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 like
is
sort of
absolutely true.
craving, wanting space. And so you might look back and see a partner where it's like, oh, well, the sex was amazing all the time. And it's like, yeah, because you were completely insecure and unstable in that
Yeah,
relationship.
you were
And
emotionally gone, like,
right, right.
totally unstable.
Not that that's always the case, but I do think that, again, there's a trade off, understanding that when you're in a long-term intimate partnership that it's unlikely to that is stable, it's unlikely to look the same way. And you might choose a partner long term who, like, the primary reason you choose that partnership is because the sex is amazing. But most people that I've met have different priorities in terms of what they want in a life partner.
Right, but I would also argue that it kinda sounds so extreme to be like every sexual experience is off the charts because that's
Mm.
like saying every emotional experience you have with somebody is off the charts. Like, that's just not possible, is it? Like, say you're going to the grocery store and you're like, "Ah, this is not like how we normally go to the grocery store. Usually we're playful and fun," and, like, maybe that day it's a little off because the temperature isn't right for whatever reason.
Right.
Nobody's fighting. It's not awful, but it just isn't the usual
Mhm.
feeling. So if
Mhm.
anxiety is too looking for a certain experience, like I like how you said varied experience, and it doesn't fit in that varied experience that's allowed, it
Right.
can get a lot more
It goes
complicated.
outside of that spectrum, the allowable
Yeah,
spectrum.
it's like, this is my window of tolerance for
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
variabilities. Yeah,
No, that's absolutely true. I agree with you that there's not, yeah. There,
like, yes, some people you may sexually connect with more and have, but it's not all or nothing, it's never all or nothing.
yeah. And again, I think that the less contact you're in with the person, like the more infrequent it is, the more sort of special and, I'm going to make up a word, maybe pedestalized, right? It
That's
is.
true, yeah,
um, the more we are sort of constantly having that really strong positive experience when we get some sort of compliment or have some
mhm.
sort of emotional connection. But it also comes with the extreme other side, which is agonizing over, why aren't they calling? Why aren't they texting? What
Mhm.
do they really care about me?
Right. Right, exactly.
Yeah. In terms of, because you talked about, groinal checking, I think that, and we've kind of been talking about this too, but emotionally checking, just checking the degree of excitement or joy or the experience of connection, or yeah, just sort of that general,
Yeah,
do I like this person? That's one of my favorites, is when people are like, I'm not even sure that I like him
yeah,
or her or them. Like, it's like,
yeah,
yeah, okay.
yeah,
So that's uncomfortable,
yeah,
right?
it sure is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when we're getting into, like, life decisions, like getting married, buying a house, having children, there's all these big triggers that can come along with it
Yep.
that can throw people for a loop.
And that moral scrupulosity again that
Yes.
you're bringing up.
Yeah, there it
Like,
is. It's like, am I lying to them? Oh, I'm bringing in a brand new human to this world. Is that the right thing to do? What if it's not the right person? What if
right.
I end up wanting to leave them? I should just tell them now.
Right.
And every other degree of that way it can go.
Yeah, and it's with every major life milestone. So if you're committing to the relationship, like, this is my boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, whomever, or the engagement or the wedding
Mhm.
or the I'm going to have a child, like, these are things where it's like there are progressive levels of commitment to this thing, and there's
Yeah,
this concern that I'm somehow going to hurt this person or some other person because I'm not being totally honest with myself or with them. Um,
which has a lot of guilt and shame when it's that variety.
right. And can lead to more of that compulsive confessing you were talking about earlier, especially in the context of to the partner. And that's where we see a lot of relationship difficulties coming up when somebody
Right.
has our OCD, if they are constantly confessing like, I'm not sure that I really love you. Like that's a lot for a relationship to hold.
Yeah,
Um,
it is. Yeah, sure is.
so that's it's tough, and learning how to accept the possibility maybe I am being immoral by not saying something
Yeah.
here. That's
Um, Unrelated to that is like, compulsively breaking up with people,
ooh, that's a good one. That's a really good one.
right?
Yeah,
Just
and I will say adding to that, like never getting into a relationship because
avoiding, yeah.
yeah, it's like, oh, well, that person's not perfect, so I guess
Mhm.
I'll wait. Yeah.
Right, or like asking your partner to change the way they look in some way because maybe the obsession is really fixated on
Mm,
the way the person cuts their hair or the way their voice sounds. They might say like, "Can you talk like this instead?" Or, there's a lot of
yeah. Or wanting to take a break to work on yourself. I hear that one quite a bit as
mm,
well. Like, I just need space so that I can work on myself and look at myself, and then I can figure it out, and then we can be back together. It's like,
not if you're in our room. Not gonna get space.
no, probably not. Probably not.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to pathologize that. Like, of course, people need space, and
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's,
yeah.
but this idea of like I'm gonna cut this off so that I can get like a clean slate is
Makes
all
you feel uncomfortable.
right. Right.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, can I work through this and find my space within the relationship, which is ultimately going to set you up for a healthier relationship anyway.
Yeah. Yep.
But
Relationships are hard, everybody. That's the reality of this whole story.
that is very true. And there is absolutely no certainty with them. Um, yeah, I'm working on some presentations and such for IOCDF, and I was just talking about the fact that like it's like, yeah, you don't know. You go into um, a partnership, a marriage, whatever, and you don't have any assurance that it is
Mm-mm.
going to how it's going to end because you don't have all the information. You couldn't possibly. You don't know who you're going to be in 5 years or 10 years or what's going to happen or what the other person's doing or what they have been doing and that you don't know about. Like there's just
Or the
way too
things that
much.
could conspire or, unravel or death or
Right. Yeah.
disasters, or not to be really dark. You're welcome, everyone. Kelley
In
has
case
arrived.
if you weren't thinking about it already, Kelley
Somebody's head
Frankie.
popped off or got
That does
killed
make
in a
it
car
really hard
accident.
to love each other when your head pops off. I hate it when that happens.
It really gets in the way.
Yeah, yeah. I do think that actually to that end, checking love, like the feeling of love is, I don't know if we talked much about this last time because it's been a minute, but like the difference between love as a feeling and love as a verb
Mm,
and really committing to. I think that that's one of the things that instead of always feeling a certain way or always having a certain experience, the marker from my vantage point of a healthy relationship is that you commit to walking through it together. And sometimes that's not going to be exciting, and sometimes that is. And that's not to say there are plenty of reasons why people make healthy choices to end relationships. But I
yeah,
think um, I think that the mark of a healthy relationship really isn't down to whether or not things are perfect. It's whether or not you're willing to work through the imperfect with this particular human.
yeah. Make that commitment, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, any other, I mean, obviously we could
Yeah,
go
yeah,
on
no,
and on
there's
and on.
there's so many, but these are kind of, I guess, the highlights, the cliff
Mhm.
notes, but they can be so, so elaborate and it's unlimited.
It really is unlimited. Ooh, I will say, yeah, one thing that I think is important that we acknowledge any sort of researching online, Googling tests to see whether or not you're in the right relationship or reading self help books or, right, like all
Or
of
rom-coms and being like, "Oh, do it compare your love to that too?"
yep, absolutely. So there are all sorts of other ways where you
Yeah,
might find yourself trying to ensure that your relationship is right. And we're here to tell you that it is hard to not know whether or not a whole lot of things are right
Yeah.
or okay. It's sort of the essence of this disorder, no matter what permutation we might see.
Yep. It's true. All right.
And on that happy note,
Right.
just as a reminder, in case you want to find Kelley, she's at the Center for OCD. She's the director there. You can find her on Instagram at the OCD Therapist or her website, centerforocd.com.
Thanks.
And
And Lauren is the director at the Center for the Obsessive Mind, which is an excellent place to visit, by the way.
oh, thank you.
And you can find her on Instagram at The Obsessive Mind, and her website is theobsessivemind.com.
Oh, well, thanks, friend. And we
Yeah.
are Purely OCD. We'll be coming back at you here soon with an episode devoted to exposure and response prevention in the context of relationship OCD, since we're doing these little three-parters of
Yeah.
different subtypes. And we'll look forward to seeing you hopefully next time.
Yes. Okay.
Adios.
Take care.